Welcome to Just Healing, where we rediscover humanity in our conversations around trauma and celebrate all the unique ways we love and heal. I'm one of your Season 2 co-hosts, Dr. Debra. Trauma doesn't exist in a bubble. Healing shouldn't either. Let's listen, let's learn, let's heal.
I think that people have been taught that their power is limited, and that is why, people have become so fragile because of what the world has taught them. This place is a beautiful place, but it's also a very hard place. Just know that you are worth it, you are valuable on this planet, no matter what you look like, no matter, how you identify, no matter how traumatic it may seem or be, it happened and you can heal from it. And not only heal from it, but it can make you an even more powerful person.
Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of Just Healing. We have a fabulous guest today, and as you know, I'm introducing you to all your guests in Season 2. So today is Jayce Baron. Welcome, Jayce.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing today?
I am good. I am fabulous. I am hanging out with you.
Same.
So why don't you tell the listeners or the watchers a little bit about who you are and how you got connected to MenHealing?
Yeah, so I can't quite remember how exactly we connected with MenHealing. It was a very long time ago, but I had come forward, before COVID, actually.
Oh.
This was a little while ago. So in 2016, I was part of passing SB 813 in the state of California with lawyer Allred and Mike Gibson and Senator Conley Levy. And from that, my story kind of went viral. And so I started, after that, passing this bill, the statute of limitations on rape charges in California, I started doing more activism work and kind of finding these little communities of people who were doing the same thing, which I was not privy to before. And so, I met Jim and we've been rocking ever since. That was probably almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, there's a long history here, and I've watched a lot of your videos and stuff that you do, and you always are doing that, to bring out so much information to people, right? And then I see some of your personality come through. Why don't we tell people about that?
Yeah, well, my thing is always kind of humanizing the experience. I think one of the things why I've been able to translate to so many different people with an array of identities is because I just keep it 100% real. I tap into just the human experience that we all have to live through in this life. And kind of once you realize that we're all just here trying to figure it out, it really makes life more simpler, and you have a lot more grace with people, with dealing with people. So
one of the things I noticed is you tell stories of people of color, but you tell them through their eyes. Does that make sense? So it's not like you're telling it through your eyes. You're telling their story through their eyes. And I can actually feel them come through the screen. It is one of them, I even text you. I'm like, oh my God, that is just so powerful, right?
Thank you. Yeah. So, I think a lot of times people, everyone has a story, we're all just kind of living this life. And I think one of the talents or gifts that I have in this life is with people. And so, for example, one of the films that we did was called Beyond Ed Bug. And in that film, I produced it with co-star Haley Sahar, and we interviewed a sibling of a non-binary person in Ohio who had been murdered. And, we went to Ohio, sat in this woman's living room and spoke with her, and it's really helped her that, hey, just telling these stories authentically. And we still talk to this day. She texted me for my birthday last week. And so I think that's just a natural gift. And I see people for who they are as well. I was on a podcast for 5 years with Farja Seld, who's a great media correspondent and interviewed so many different people. And I think one thing about journalism these days that's kind of missing is the humanizing experience. And once you kind of tap into that, or allow people to tap into that, they could go on for days, and a lot of people don't know their value in some points, and they have a story that's important to the world.
And that is just so positive. And one thing about MenHealing is that we like to have survivors feel that. So for your like segment, like what do you think you're going to bring to the listeners?
I think, for my segment, definitely kind of continue tapping on that human experience. I definitely want to diversify who I'm talking to. A lot of the work that I do is with queer LGBTQ plus people of color. And, it's great to tap into those stories. I think also kind of bridging the gaps between everybody and showing that we're all going through something that is similar. There's definitely obviously various, I guess, tiers, if you will, depending on the way the society treats you. We're really tapping into people's stories, and I didn't tell an array of stories. I'm a really happy and fun person. I think a lot of times people associate trauma with sadness. People associate trauma with dreariness, and just like, but it's also a very empowering thing if you allow it to be. And that's one thing that I've been able to do is take my story it was extremely traumatizing, but take it and use it to not only empower myself as a human being walking this planet, but empower others and show others that the story is not as important as well.
Yeah, I think that's why when I watch your films and your shorts and stuff that you do, I see that come through. I see that power, right? It's just such a shift. If you just change one word sometimes in a sentence, it makes a shift to someone being, feeling their power versus feeling defeated,
Yeah. And the thing about it is we all have it. We're all born on this planet. I had a mentor of mine pass away December of last year, and during his funeral, his brother spoke and said, "Hey, we're all on this timeline. We all have a date that we come and a date that we leave." And kind of once we realize that, hey, that's all we have. One of my favorite quotes that my dad said to me once upon a time was, "You're only given a certain amount of energy per lifetime. Use it wisely." And from that moment on, I've been very intentional with the way that I use my time, whether it be for balance, which is one of my New Year's resolutions, and just living my life to the fullest.
And because you only live once. I tell people that all the time. Like people say, "Oh, I'm going to wait till next year. Or I'm going to do this." I'm like, what is wrong with now? Like, you only live once. And right? And our days are numbered.
Yeah, the days, and then not only that, but people around us too. Again, like I mentioned, my mentor passed away, my brother passed away too, and they're in a different form right now. But that time that we had is a cherished moment that I'll always be able to keep with me. But being able to call my friend Ivan or write a letter to my Nana, I can't do that anymore. They're no longer here.
Creating those life scripts for yourself of what, fills you, right? One of the things that, MenHealing does, it helps people take that and change it into that. And I'm wondering, because the premise for our show is like, let's listen, let's learn, let's heal. How are you going to bring listening to survivors through this podcast?
So, again, I think that my skill is kind of letting people know that their own story matters. I'm not going to reveal any guests yet. You gotta wait. But definitely tapping into my role as entertainment, and so I produce, direct, also write as well. And I've always been able to bridge the entertainment world with the advocacy world. With anything that I do, anything that I put out is very centered in advocacy work, even though it may be a film. And one of the things that entertainment has done, it's a great conduit, a great medium to tell stories that matter and get people's attention. Because not everyone responds to, a speech or, preachy delivery. People want to be entertained. I think there's a very clever way that entertainment has been able to convey these very important stories and messages to a large group of people, a large audience. So I definitely want to tap into the entertainment world and kind of share some of those stories, especially behind the scene. One of the things that my personal journey has been is things that have happened behind the scenes in the entertainment industry that are extremely inappropriate, extremely violent, and a lot of that goes on. We just saw Cassie come forward last year with her story with her, allegations with dating. That was a very familiar story. And, we're about the same age. And there's a lot of things that go on, whether you're a man or a woman, or non-binary, kind of navigating this life. And so there's things that are going on. And so I definitely want to bring light to the behind the scenes, and especially young people that are coming into the industry with a hope and a dream that want to make it to anything, stardom. And they have this dream, and people who are, older in the industry, who are executives or whoever they may be, taking advantage of those innocent minds and bodies.
Yeah, and that's where you can educate, right? Because people need to learn. They need to learn those pitfalls. They need to learn. I mean, people would tell me all the time, "Oh, you should let your son get in the industry," and I'm like, "No." And that's only because I want him to be a kid. When he's 18, he can do whatever he wants, but there's so many avenues you can take. And I don't feel that I was educated enough to guide him in that, and that's, if you can bring that would be so great, because you see these people, talking about P. Diddy now, or you have Epstein, there's a list goes on and on, the Corey Feldmans out there, and people are like, "Oh, I'm shocked." I wasn't shocked.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think now is that, like, the thing about entertainment in general is that people think that they're getting the full story, and they're not. They're getting a fragment of it. And, people make assumptions really easily about a fragment of the story without knowing the whole entire thing. I think it's important to realize that there is a strong power dynamic when you have a goal and when you're in the limelight, and people will push you there and push you, but it's very political entertainment. People will push you in certain spaces, and I've experienced that firsthand when I was 18, 19 years old, and even into my 20s as well, and even now it's very interesting. And so I think what's happening is accountability, and I think that the level of accountability has not been pushed upon predators like this before in the past. And so now people are speaking out and doing things they're not afraid to do so. The Me Too movement was a huge movement that kind of lifted the veil of what was actually going on in a very public display. Because people had been saying things, over the years, but, it got swept under the rug, or people didn't believe them, or, money was involved. And so they got paid off to, be quiet. And it's also very dangerous too. People talk about the mafia and the mob, they're involved with entertainment. And so do not think that, your life could be in jeopardy. And also just living, once you're out there, you're just kind of out there, and it's very difficult to go back to, a regular job, because, you saw what happened with the actor from the Cosby's. People were taking pictures of him in Trader Joe's. And so you can't go back to a life like that. And so people have to keep their money. The right still do.
Right. Once you're famous, your life changes, and people forget that. And it doesn't matter how you're famous. Like, you can be famous for something negative, something positive. Your life has completely changed, and you can never just go to Trader Joe's. You can never just, go to Disneyland. Like, there's so much that goes into that. And people say, "Oh yeah, but they're famous. They have all this," but they have all this other stuff that's on the back end.
Yeah, I'm reading Barack Obama's book right now, which is very, very insightful. And he's kind of chronologically tapping into that period of his life where he realized that, like, he was famous, as a politician before the presidency as well. And, him going to the zoo with his daughters, and someone recognizing him, and to the point where security had to take the daughters away, and he had to finish doing pictures and whatnot with, fans, if you will. And he realized that, his life from that moment on would not be the same. And that was challenging at points, because he just wanted to go to the zoo with his daughters, and he couldn't do that anymore.
No. And that's a choice that you make, but you don't really realize that until you're in it, until you're living that, because no one can describe that for you, and it's really hard sometimes for celebrities to adjust. You get these, and then you get these celebrities that you don't hear about, you know, and they recluse themselves for whatever the reason, respect that privacy, but it's because of all the other stuff, all the other noise that comes in, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I definitely want to touch upon your episode with cults.
Oh, yes, let's talk about it. That was one of my questions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was a great episode. And definitely learned a lot. Something that's not talked about. And so I was raised in a Baptist church. My stepfather is a pastor. And I also went to Christian school as well until I graduated. So I graduated from a small Christian school. My graduating class was 61 people, so very tight knit. And just listening to your guest story about being born in a cult, and even bringing up things about, hey, your religion is kind of based off of where you're born. If it wasn't for me in my situation, would I be a Christian? If I was born in India, would I be Hindu? If I was born somewhere else, would I, all these different factors kind of play into your belief system and your outlook on life. And it's not even regional, it's also your parental as well. Like, what do your parents believe? What's been passed down? And so just kind of seeing the parallels of, her story and her journey, and then, my story with religion, and kind of having to, make my own judgments and assessments that work for me, and kind of pick and choose what I need. Unfortunately, with a lot of, LGBT and, Black queer people, religion has been a very harmful thing, with the beauty part of it as well. But, their understanding has turned them away completely from just spirituality and just the beautiful idea of God, because what they've been taught is through man. And, there is the universe, there is spirituality. And unfortunately, a lot of times, they say that God made man, man made religion. And I think, one of the beautiful things that, my mother and, her teaching taught me was that my relationship with God is the most important thing, even outside of church. And, that line right there has saved me in so many different spaces with my own journey, with, my sexuality and just even myself. And so, it was interesting watching, her journey and kind of her teachings and going outside of the cult to learn more about the outside world and kind of making her own assessments and judgments.
I mean, she's just awesome. Ashley Easter, on that episode talking about that, but you're right. I mean, she was born into it. And then, you don't get to really choose your religion. Your family kind of picks for you and you go into that. Right. But you're right. There's been damage. There's not been damage. Like the episode before that was on priests, and the Catholic Church a little bit. And it was just very interesting, her take on that and how using your intuition that something doesn't feel good, move forward. And I think that helps a lot with healing, right? Because a lot of times people are broken and they're tuning into us and they're just broken people,
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing about, I think that people have been taught that their power is limited. And that is why, people have become so fragile, because of what the world has taught them. And, this place is a beautiful place, but it's also a very hard place. And it's hard because people make it hard. It wasn't always that way. And so, like we mentioned before, having grace with people and humanizing people's experience will just really go a long way.
It can really go a long way and just change the perspective. We all decided, what is it, to get along? Just get along, but just be mindful, right?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Such a big word. Like mindfulness is just cognizant, aware, where is your head at? I mean, The Matrix was a great action-packed film, but the themes in that movie are very, very, very real. Because, there was a clip of, it was an actor on the red carpet, and he was just saying that, none of this is real, it's all made up. And, once you kind of have that in your brain, we're all on borrowed time. And, you just keep living your life, and it's going to be okay. It's always going to be okay. The things that you thought were, the end of the world when you were 16 years old, guess what? It was okay. The things you thought were the end of the world when you were 22, guess what? It was still okay.
It's okay.
And that's kind of like the same thing is going to keep going forward. Just do the work.
Do the work. I always say in 10 years, this may not matter to you right now. Because, my kids are like, oh, it's a big, I'm like, 10 years? You won't even know their name.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
My daughter's 38 and my son is 13. So there's a
wow, that's a big gap.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I went through it, twice. My daughter is adopted.
Yeah.
She was a foster kid. She'll love that I'm talking about her, and she, has made such strides, and she created a cookbook for foster kids and traumatized youth, which is amazing. So now she's getting her doctorate and she wants to help other foster kids like move forward in life, which is, the coolest thing. And she's such a help to me and such a joy. So. And my son is amazing. He writes his books. I'll give him a shout out and and helps with my media. So
beautiful. Oh, that's a great family. My cousin is adopted, and she has her own story in itself. But just the beauty of just what family means, it's a complete shift. And I come from divorced parents and all the things, and like you really have to make your own family in this lifetime. It's not always necessarily blood related,
right? Us as African American or Black people, we make kinfolk relatives, right? And that could be your auntie, it could be the mailman, your cousin down the street, but they
by your cousin. Yeah, exactly.
It's the coolest thing ever. That's one of the things I love about my culture, because you can love them the same way, right? And it's just so awesome.
Absolutely.
You teased and said that you have guests, but you won't tell us. Can you give us a hint? Just a hint of something.
The hint is people will know who they are, and they'll be telling a story that they have not told before.
Ooh. That's deep.
Yeah. So let's go.
Yeah, let's go. I'm excited. It's a big teaser. I'm thinking about all the people because I see you and I see you posting stuff, the Golden Globes and all that stuff. So now I'm like, ooh, I could say I am like, what is it? It's three degrees of separation or whatever.
It was 6 degrees, but I think social media has made it like 2.
Yeah. It's like gone down, like from Kevin Bacon or something like that. So it's like gone down. But the world is a small place. I'm amazed about who I know and who knows me and who doesn't. And it is absolutely scary to me sometimes.
It's so many times where I'll just be casually scrolling on an Instagram post or something, and I'll see like 2 people I know that I did not know each other at dinner or something. And I was like, oh, I did not know that they knew each other, but you're all just very connected, interconnected with each other. So
you never know. I remember this videographer I knew. I've known him for 10 years, and my brother's scrolling. He goes, "How do you know him?" I said, "I don't know." He goes, "I've been trying to meet him for years." I'm like, "I've known him 10 years." Like I just didn't even think that would be something he'd want. Like to know. It was just the craziest thing ever. But that's how life is.
Timing too, because they weren't meant to meet before. They're meant to meet when he saw that post.
Because of whatever reason. It's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
So, with that, what do you want people to take away to tune in to about you and about everything we talked about?
My takeaway, so I want people to take away that their story matters. Their story is beautiful, and no matter how traumatic it may seem or be, it happened. And you could heal from it, and not only heal from it, but it can make you an even more powerful person. With my story, the other day, I started tearing up. I'm about to tear up again right now, because I was able to connect all these different moments in my life. I'm working on things right now, and I was like, well, if this didn't happen, that at the time seemed very terrible, this would have happened later on in life. And so, I was able to kind of connect those dots and just be like, hey, everything happens for a reason, and nothing that is done goes in vain. And so I think that's true for everybody, not just me. And so I think people just know that you are worth it, you are valuable, on this planet, no matter what you look like, no matter, how you identify, trans, I'm Afro-Latino, my mother's an immigrant and became a doctor in the US. And so, and I come from a family of very powerful people, and you never know what's in your genetics and your DNA. It could be some very powerful stuff. So just keep going and it's going to be okay.
I love that. I love that. So thank you for tuning in, and please watch this segment. I'm going to be tuning in because I am just so overjoyed to be part of this podcast. So with that, let's listen, let's learn, let's heal.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Just Healing. Join us for new episodes throughout 2024, where we will continue to spread the message of hope and healing, and welcome Just Healing's 3 new co-hosts, Michael Munson, Dr. Greg Kaysen, and Jayce Baron. It's going to be an exciting year. And remember, you are worthy, trauma doesn't define us, and healing is a collective journey. This podcast is produced by myself, Dr. Debra, in collaboration with MenHealing, a national nonprofit dedicated to helping provide accessible resources and community for any male or male-identifying survivors of sexual harm. MenHealing's aim is to help heal, inspire, and break isolation for survivors. You can donate, check out our healing events, videos, and other resources at menhealing.org. If you or someone you know has been a victim of sexual harm and you need to talk to someone, RAIN can help. Call their National Sexual Assault Hotline to speak with a trained staff member who can provide you with confidential crisis support. It's free, confidential, and 24/7. Call 1-800-656-4673.